Welcome to AM Muscle Maintenance with inSHAPE Fitness. I'm Coach Kim, and I am talking today about the Functional 5. It's been a couple of weeks since I've recorded a podcast. It's been incredibly crazy in New York City with being a public school mom and involved in the public school system as an elected official. So those other hats that I've been wearing took precedence over my my ability to record a podcast, but never has it been more important for you to exercise in your home on a daily basis than it is right now. And I don't mean going, just sort of filling in the gap because the gyms basically in the whole country are closing down. But I mean, in terms of your sanity, your mental acuity, and your physical response to the even more sedentary existence that you might be living now that you're working from home, you're teaching your kid from home, and so on and so forth. So the Functional 5, I'm going to be doing a bunch more podcasts, by the way, now that I'm settled. But the Functional 5 is a concept that I introduced a couple of years ago to clients who were really struggling to figure out something that they could do as their homework in between sessions with me. And it's a really simple idea of picking 5 exercises, doing those 5 exercises for 1 minute each every single day. So 5 exercises, 1 minute each is 5 minutes, and that's it. So this podcast isn't going to be longer than 15 minutes, but it will be about 15 minutes. And that's because I'm going to give you 5 exercises and I'm going to teach you how to do them. And then we'll do a little bit of them together. But so you might want to go back and listen to this multiple times if you want to take on this 5. It doesn't have to be the 5 that I give you. It could be any 5. But the point is that you pick 5 things that you know how to do pretty well. And then you do those exercises every single day. So the 5 we're going to do are squats, a plank, hip bridges, a basic lunge, and jumping jacks, right? Really, really uber simple stuff. And if you're pretty fit and you want to mix it up and do something different, obviously, again, you go for it. But the first thing we're going to do is a hip bridge because I like starting on the floor. So you lie down on the floor. Hip bridge is so great because when you're seated at a desk and your hips are flexed, they're stuck in that shortened flex position, you're going to the consequences of that seated position is it makes the muscle tight, it makes the muscle weak, and it also inhibits the muscular response on the neuro side. So when you lie down on your back, your hands are beside your body, your legs are bent, your knees are bent, and your feet are flat on the floor about hip width apart. Now, it's important that your feet stay flat on the floor. It's also important that you don't turn out your toes. You want your feet to be straight. And then when you lift into the hip bridge, you want to make sure that your ankles and your knees make a straight line. All right, so then when you lift up your butt and your hip flexors are fully extended, you want to be careful not to arch your back. But when you lift up your butt and your hips are fully extended, if your feet are flat, in fact, keep your toes down on purpose, like kind of pay attention to making sure that the balls of your feet and your toes are really gripping, making contact with your floor. And then you'll feel the back of the leg as well engaged and your butt. So it's more than just the hip muscular extension, but then when you lower down and lift up and your hips get that slight bend, full extension, you're taxing the back of the body and making sure that you fully extend those hip flexors. And that's the simple hip bridge, right? So that can take, if you do 10 of them, it might take 15 to 18 seconds. That's not a minute. So what I would encourage you to do with the hip bridge is to do a couple of basic ones and then practice. And it might take some time for you to do this. Practice them with one leg because you'll find if you lift, you're right-handed, which most of you are, you see, I say this with my tone of annoyance because I'm left-handed. I've always had that like left-handed person, a crutch on my or chip on my shoulder, I guess. But anyway, so if you lift up the left leg, your right leg is flat, and it's hard to execute a hip bridge with just the right leg. But then when you lift up the right leg and you try to execute a hip bridge with just your left leg, you'll find that it's even, it's way much harder. But try those. But the point is doing a hip bridge for about a minute in total. Okay, so that's that. Hip bridges are really great, and I just love them so much. They're one of my favorite exercises, and I do them every morning as well. So now turn your body over. Does a plank for a minute sound really daunting? It might. Yeah. It does to me, actually. I don't like to hold a plank for a minute. But this is what we're going to do. So you know how important a plank is. If you'd have to be living in a closet for like the last 5 years to not know that the significance of the plank is not a hoax. It's not like a fad with exercise. The position where you are kind of holding your body in the air against gravity, which is bearing down. So when you're standing up, like think about this. So when you're standing up, you have gravity, the physical pressure that is exerting on everything on planet Earth. It bears down on your spine, on the top of your head and onto your spine. So you don't feel it at all. When you are extended flat on the floor with your elbows on the floor. So with this plank, it's a low plank as it's called. Your elbows are on the floor, lined up in a straight line with your shoulders. So you don't want to do this on your hands. It could fatigue your wrists, and then you're on the balls of your feet or on your knees, which is a shortened lever, sort of adjusted adjusted plank. But when you're in the position and you're holding that levitated kind of like position, gravity is bearing down on the entire surface of the backside of your body, right? And so you feel that. What happens is there's a pressurized sort of teamwork approach to the structure of your trunk that is stabilizing your internal organs. That is what you're feeling because you've got several muscle layers inside that line your rib cage and then wrap your rib cage and then line the side of your body. And then you've got the more external rectus abdominis and the erector spinae muscle that are the back and the tummy muscles. So that feeling, if you're holding a plank right now, that's great. It's been a little more than a minute since I started talking about plank, but you can break this up into a couple of parts, break it up into a 30-second segment and then another 30-second segment. That's fine. Take your, that little break in between with a couple of deep breaths or whatever. And then finish, once you've completed a plank for a minute. And again, dropping to your knees is a perfectly acceptable thing to do. Don't feel badly about that. Just make sure that when you drop to your knees, you still have that butt down, you have that straight line, which means that the pressure, the lever and the pressure that's exerting on your body is diminished a little bit in terms of the full standard plank, but you're still forcing that contraction, that sort of teamwork contraction of all of your tummy muscle layers. Okay, so we did a hip bridge, we did a plank. Now let's do a standard squat. Okay, a standard squat is when you, and again, we can do a lot of different variations with these exercises. I'll talk about the variations at the end, but a standard squat is not typically something that you think of as super hard. But again, in terms of function, it's a functional 5. What we're trying to do is warm up your body a little bit in the morning, send some oxygenated blood out to your extremities to generate your sort of turn on all the engines, generate your cellular response to starting to move around. Your alarm clock goes off and you wake up and everything, but The temperature thing is one thing. So it's, you're like, I'm always a little chilly when I wake up. Even in the warmer months, I'm a little chilly when I wake up. So you want to warm up a little bit. It's a warm up for the day. And by sitting down and standing up in the squat, you're interacting with gravity, right? So gravity is not just bearing down on you, but now you're pushing up against it as you stand up from your seated position. But you're also, generating a little bit of an aerobic heart rate. And you're exercising, working the back a little bit, working your butt a little bit, obviously working your legs. So position your feet shoulder width apart. Again, make sure your toes don't turn out, just like with the hip bridge. You want your feet to be straight. And you want to, when you sit down, and you can sit into an actual chair if you need to, practice this. You sit down, you make sure that you stick your butt out a little bit, and you don't let your knees go past the tips of your toes. That's another concept we'll deal with when we get to the lunge next. But with the standard squat, it's super important that you keep your knees back. And that means you're going to want to bend forward a little bit, but you want to try not to do that either. You want to keep your chest high. Don't arch your back, but keep your chest high. Keep your tummy muscles pulled in. So you sit down as you inhale, and then you can press your heels into the floor and stand up by obviously contracting your butt and lifting up through your trunk. So lift up tall and lift up completely, where you feel those hip flexors straighten out as you stand up. So we've got 2 more exercises to go. And the last of the 2 are, they're jumping jacks at the end. I like to save jumping at the end. I'll talk about why jumping is so important in a minute. Lunges are kind of a hated exercise for a lot of people. And I'm not trying to sell you on the benefits of lunges specifically, but one of the reasons why I like lunges in addition to squats is because squats you do on 2 legs. Now, there are some variations on squats where you can lift up a leg into a kick or into a side or whatever side lift. But with lunges, you're forced to separate your legs from each other and make them work independently of one another. And that concept, which I call pivoting, is really interesting, integral to making sure that one side of your body doesn't have total strength over the other. And right-handed people tend to suffer from this a great deal because of movement patterns, particularly right-handed exercisers, where the right leg over time will end up doing more work, which means that the left leg lags. And that's not good either. So with a lunge, you stand up really tall. You can extend your arms out to the sides for balance. And then you take a big step forward, keeping your feet straight. And you can hold on to something if you need to, by the way, as well. Hold on to the back of a chair or your couch or a table or something. Then you bend both knees, lowering the body straight down. You don't want to bend forward at your waist. You want to keep your back straight and keep your tummy muscles pulled in. Your posture is so important as we get used to this new life that we're living right now with a new reality of being in our homes a lot. Much more than most of us want to be. In fact, it's easy to be very lazy, to lounge, longer on the couch, to lounge in the bed longer, to sit longer, and that's not good for the physical part of your human existence. So you take that big step forward, you bend the both knees, and lower the body straight down, and then you push off the forward foot. And then return yourself to the starting position. Again, 1 minute, so 30 seconds on each leg. Doesn't really matter how many you execute, just do them well. And as you get better at them, you'll do more. As you get better, maybe 5 minutes turns into 6 or 7 or 10. That's fine too. But use the simplicity of this concept to train yourself to do these exercises really well. I've been watching people exercise for 10 years. I actually fashion myself as just as much an anthropologist as I do a coach. But watching people do exercises wrong is something that really tears me up inside, and it's impossible for me to see you. But executing the moves correctly is where the sweet spot is in terms of getting the benefits out of exercises. Now we've reached the end here where we've got jumping jacks. I know you know how to do jumping jacks. And again, it's about doing them well. Why do we jump? Why do we jump? I hate jumping, people say. And we jump because the plyometric component of any exercise routine is vital for the stimulus of the neuromuscular, the receptors that reside in your feet and in your toes as well, in your fingertips as well, because of the way that neurons, sort of the way that they live in your body, they run all the way down your legs, all the way out your feet, all the way down your arms and to the tips of your fingers. But in terms of your metabolism, in terms of neuromuscular activation and maintenance, jumping for a minute, again, you can break it up into a couple of parts, is really, really important. When you do your jumping jacks, make sure you reach up over your head, touch at the top, and make sure you stay light on your feet. Have a great day. I will see you again soon.